Three, two, one. Greetings, everyone. My name is Dena Grushkin, and I am the Teaneck liaison for the Teaneck International Film Festival. And it's a pleasure for me to speak with these two amazing human beings this morning regarding a documentary called Locker Room Talk. And so we have with us Eva Tenuto, and she is one of two producers of this film and director. And we also have someone who participated in the film in a very big way. His name is Jeramie Collins. So welcome to the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For having us.
So your documentary film Locker Room Talk, produced in partnership with the TMA Project, chronicles a group of Kingston High School football players as they participate in a TMI Project memoir writing and storytelling workshop designed to confront a hypermasculine culture and redefine what it means to be men by promoting a healthy, respectful version of manhood. Now, this film in no way suggests that men are inherently bad. Let's put that out there. But rather highlights value in critiquing destructive social norms that limit healthy expressions of identity and emotion, and also the value in creating safe spaces to share, allowing for a functional shift in the way boys and young men relate to each other and to women.
Mhm.
What a fabulous film it was.
Thank
So
you.
there's no question that this film will continue to inspire more men and boys to access their authentic selves and to speak up in the face of violence against women. So I'm going to start with you, Jeramie. Lots of questions for you. So you shared in this film that you grew up in a family where expression of feelings was encouraged.
Correct.
Was it your upbringing or your experience as a coach that prompted you to bring in Terry Porter and the TMI Project?
So I'm the youngest of 10. So, family was a big part of our growth. And through experiences, through our family, we lost our father. I was at a very young age. I was at 5 years old when my dad passed away. So siblings, the community, my mom, my grandparents, everyone kind of pitched in to develop us who we are. And many of the things that they shared with us, the lessons they shared with us, it just made sense, right? They made sense. Do the right thing. Be nice to your neighbor. I've been a volunteer fireman for over 40 years. So that's been in our family, and it's just been just the way it was. That's just how we were raised. Leave it better than you found it. That was drilled into our head. So to become a coach, a teacher, an educator, a school counselor, that just has always been the message moving forward to the young people. And I mean, I think it was maybe 2012-ish. Our social worker came to us and said, we have an issue with dating relationships with our male students and some of their female partners. And it would be a great opportunity to work with some of our young men on how to be better young men. And like you said, not that they're bad, but just on how to be better at relationships and communicating and expressing themselves properly. So that's kind of how it started. And that turned into doing some work. We were recognized at a domestic violence presentation with the state and the county. And that led us to bring students to see Tony Porter. And that's where we met Eva Tenuto, Tony Porter. We all kind of ended up in the same place at the same time without even planning it. And it just fell into place. So, many thanks to people in our school district just recognizing that we need to deal with some of our issues and then saying yes, and that's the biggest thing is to say yes, to move forward, to do the right thing, and to who we never guessed. I'll speak for myself. I never guessed that it would be where we are today.
Mm.
We did this. If it helped one student, we did a good thing.
So I want to riff off of what you said because I find it interesting. When they came to you, when the project opportunity showed up in your school, was it presented to lots of teachers or did it come directly to your table?
It was directed, our social worker, we worked in teams. So our social worker came to me directly. And one of the things that I guess I don't know if I would say it's a strength. I would say it's a strength to be willing to try something that's not comfortable. And I'm
Mhm.
willing to do that. So I think that's part of why that person came to me. And she's a tremendous asset to the school system. And she came and said, "Look, this is something we should look into," and we did.
Wonderful.
And she came and said, "Hey, there's this thing with Tony Porter. He's coming to the local community college. And the school district said, take the van, take some football players," and we went. And
Wonderful.
in the middle of this presentation, my wife works at the community college and she's in teaching class in one of the other buildings. And Tony Porter asked me to stand up in front of Eva Tenuto in a room full of very amazing people who are there to talk about domestic violence and domestic violence awareness. And I stood up and he asked me to speak as to all the reasons why I love my wife. And as I start to answer his question, he stops me. He's like, "Come on, man, like be real. Like this is, let's hear what you're really thinking." And it was he allowed, to stand up in front of the football players sitting next to me. They're hitting me and they're smiling but just a chance to take that chance to stand up and speak about why I love my wife was a great opportunity. She's getting texts from her friends that are in the audience, like, "Your husband's talking about you," and it just kind of took off from there. And she's been a big part of this project. She drove a van full of students down to New Jersey for an event,
Mm.
and it was an amazing event that we were able to witness. And when we left there, everybody, myself, the players, Eva, the film crew, we all walked out thinking, this is amazing. This opportunity has been amazing for these kids to witness, to be a part of, to take a chance as well. And even I took a chance right with them. We were in writing these prompts and doing these things, and her TMI project to me, that opportunity to create that space, allow them to talk about things that young men usually don't talk about, and to do it in a way that was safe and allowed, and it brought them to a place where they could talk about very serious issues: suicide, body image, which young men, you don't think that's an issue. And we found that with many of them, that is an issue. And
Mhm.
loss, death and loss. And much of it was created through that process that TMI Project allowed us to do. So we're grateful for that opportunity to sit there and write our stories and then present our stories and then feel good about it when we were done, and hence started this whole momentum.
Wonderful. Eva, in that vein, that Jeramie is speaking to, there are so many ways to heal, right? And many ways to access our authentic selves. Share with us the value and the benefit of memoir writing,
Hmm.
storytelling as a tool in this space.
I was thinking when you first opened up the conversation about how this film in no way is shaming men or saying that they're bad. I think about the project as really being, it's a dedication to our boys and men. It's an expression of love for our boys and men. It's a way of saying we want to create spaces to help you have a better life because you have not been given the skills to be able to do things that are required to live a healthy, authentic, emotionally stable life. You have not been given those skills. So I think to answer that question, storytelling and the way that we approach writing and the way we approach storytelling, we're really teaching people how to communicate about things that they've gone through that are emotional and vulnerable and challenging. And we often are not taught how to communicate in the first place. So we are there with storytelling as the product that we're working on. We're going to create that together. But in the process, there is a lot of meaningful sharing that happens in the workshop space. There's a lot of talk and attention to very intentional, active listening. I just saw the group of young men who were in the film. I hadn't seen them in 7 years. And we got to sit together and preview the film. It was for most of them the first time they got to watch it together. And it was just incredible to see how they're still capable of talking honestly in front of one another. And after they watched the film and they reflected back at the experience, they were saying how much it made an impact on them because they had never been taught those skills before. One of them said, after watching, oh, now that I've been reminded about everything we went through, I can't believe how much it changed my life. Like, I am capable of having conversations with my girlfriend now. I'm capable of talking about hard things. Another one was like, yeah, I work with my dad, and we have to navigate a lot of things in business. I would never have been able to raise the issues that we have to face together had I not gone through that program. So I just think about, like, none of this is instinctual. And unlike Jeramie, I came from a family where we did not talk about things, which is why I do what I do. I know what it feels like to grow up in an environment where you can't speak about things. And I think that if you think about emotions that are not processed, rage turned inward is depression, rage turned outward can be violence. And we want to address both of those things.
So in doing so, how did you build this safe space? How did you approach building trust with participants who shared very personal stories with you on camera? I mean, they have already built a relationship with Jeramie, right? So that's already been set in stone. But,
Yeah.
here you are coming in and you're a woman, right?
Yes.
And a white woman
Yep.
at that. And, how did you get them to open up to you in that space of time that you had?
It's a really good question, a good observation. Like I said, we started the project in 2016. So at the time, TMI project was only 6 years old. We're now almost 16 years old. At the time, we had two workshop leaders, myself and Sari Botten, who I was teaching the workshop with at the time. Now, 10 years later, we only have workshop leaders who can identify with the populations that we're serving. So I would never teach another locker room talk program again, but I'm glad I got it started, and I'm glad that I got to experience it firsthand. And that now I'm also capable of training young men on what to expect and what they can do. But that was why the two of us were there. We were just a very small organization at the time. And it wasn't easy to get participants to be involved. We had Tony Porter come up from South Carolina to present to them. In our naive, wishful thinking, we thought Tony will present to them. He's going to establish the context for why they would want to be involved in this. We saw him do that at the event that he had, that coach was referencing at SUNY Ulster. And they're going to want to participate. So then there was like a call to get involved after. And there was one student who raised his hand and said he would do it. And we're like, oh, well, this is not going to make much of a film having one student. But one of the things that we knew is if we could focus on him and get him and maybe even one other kid to go through the program, and we could get them to tell their stories to the rest of the team, the peer influence is so much stronger than we are. So we went through, it takes time. We were really dedicated and moving slowly. We worked with a kid, Gabe, and another one named Zach for the first year. We helped them tell their stories, and then they performed their stories in the weight room for all of the other football players, varsity and junior varsity. And by the time they got finished telling their stories, we had a full workshop of participants. So peer influence, that's how we did it. And building trust over time. I think there are a lot of schools that want us to come in and do something immediately, to have a program that will work with their community immediately. And I do think that one of the things that we had at Kingston with Coach and the social worker that he's speaking of, Amy Capus, was dedication to build something over time, that we cannot expect to have deep trust the second we walk in the door.
Yeah, that's such an important understanding.
Yeah.
You have, because it takes time and that you need to sink roots, and you're right about peer influence, right? It's very impactful.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, if you ask the players, and it's referenced in the film, they want you to believe that I made them, right? I made them show up and do this work. And in some cases, I literally poked my head out in the hall, and I saw one of the participants walking by, and I'm like, come on in, like, you need to come in here and listen to this. And he chose to come in, but then he chose to stay. And I think that's important. And watching him go through the process was very fulfilling for me because he was able to deal with something in his life that he probably would have never dealt with if not given that chance.
Mhm.
And where he is today is a direct result as to the skills he gained through that process. But he very clearly in the film says, I made him do it. So we laugh about that because though, yes, I found him in the hall and said, how about you come in here? By standing in front of him and pointing into the room. Uh, but he chose to stay. And I think every one of these participants made that choice to stay, even though it was uncomfortable, even though they complained about it, even though at one point in the film, you can see, I think, a little frustration where Eva and I showed up and one other student showed up that day. And, we referenced that today we are going to get better, the three of us. And we did on that particular day, we did get better. And it helped us frame which direction we were going to go at that point. And so that the peer influence was important. The having adults in their lives that they trusted. And I think I want to say this, Eva, I hope I don't, but the look on her face dealing with young men was quite funny because she walked into this space and she's looking at these young, ninth graders and 10th graders, and they're interesting. They're an interesting group of individuals. And so it was fun watching the relationships grow between not only the players and Eva and the team, but the film crew. And by the end of the event, we all enjoyed each other. We all looked forward to seeing each other. And when we spent time together, it was genuine. And when we traveled to New Jersey and we took part in a presentation there, it was an event. It was a moment where we all walked away. Every one of us, the film crew, Eva, we all walked away better because of that experience. So it was fun to watch that whole thing and watch these young men. When Eva shared with me the other day that she met with them and they went over the film, they walked into that space like they saw her yesterday.
That's true.
That bond was formed and it will always be there.
I think there's one other important thing about the influence part and how we got them to share their stories. So there was the peer influence, but the event that Coach is referencing that was in New Jersey featured an NFL player sharing his story. And though it wasn't an official TMI story, we didn't work with him to craft that story. It was very, very vulnerable. And he modeled for them what they could do. And I think until they saw a man of influence doing the same thing, they were more hesitant. But once they saw him doing it, they felt like they could also. They were given permission by somebody of influence. And so what we also talked with them about was, you are also students of influence. You are the football players. Other boys look up to you. If you do this, they may do this also, the same way that this is working for you. And I don't know that they understood that when we were working with them at the time, but when we just reflected upon it after watching the film, they all really got it. And I wondered, are they going to be embarrassed to see their teenage selves talking on film? Are they going to regret anything that they said? Are they going to feel self-conscious? And they were all so proud of themselves. And I think that they really acknowledge that now they have the same ability to influence the people who are watching the film as the football player had when they saw him speak in front of an audience.
Yeah, the impact is tremendous, not just for themselves, not just for those who are witnessing this film, but in generations to come,
Yes.
And that's the remarkable piece, that's the power of this work. Jeramie, I'm very curious about this question. I recognize that coaching is about developing character, right?
Sure.
And off the field, right? I know that as an educator myself, right? But creating this space for students seems unique to football and maybe to other male sports in general, right? It's like a macho thing, right? So I'm just wondering, did you experience any pushback or anything from coaches, admin, friends, family, community about being so vulnerable with yourself and with your kids? What was that?
So on a face value level, no. So up front, the school district tremendously supportive, allowed us to, like I said, bring students to the event at Ulster Community College, bring the students to New Jersey, give us the space in the school and the time in the school to do the presentations, to do the workshops. And, so on that level, up front, it was, there wasn't any pushback. Now, there was one or two times when you're building a film and you're doing this, I didn't realize all that goes into it, and there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces that have to come together. When we got into the integral part of things, there was some times where it was difficult. We at one point, the film crew, I'm getting a panic phone call, and we had to do a couple of phone calls to work out and make sure that everything was running smoothly. And to the professionalism of the crew, they were able to get what they needed for the film, and it worked out. So I think underlying, there were some where I said, where's this pushback coming from? What is this about? But it wasn't outward. It wasn't, there were some coaches, and I'm not saying it in a bad way, but they were more concerned with winning and losing, X's and O's. We should be focused on lifting weights and watching film and doing these kind of things. And the way that I have always coached, and I think, to the strength, I'm not doing anything differently than I would do if the film was on, if the camera was on, or if the film is off. If it's track, if it's football, if it's lacrosse, if it's it doesn't matter. If the way I've always chose to coach these kids and all the kids is community service is vital. We have to be involved in the community and try to make it better, leave it better than we found it, and build relationships that are meaningful. And at the end of the day, we did tons of work. We built 3 playgrounds. And after we did the first one, it was for an autistic school. And word got out that these Kingston football players just built this crazy nice playground for the autistic school and the spectrum school for autism. And next thing you know, we're getting a phone call from another community. Can you come up and work with our community and build this playground? We happened to take that community's school. A couple of their players came to our school because football was dropped. And so I said, yeah, you're part of our community now. And we went to that other community and we built that playground. That turned into building a playground for one of our teammates, the new teammate from the other school district. He said, my elementary school is building a playground. Can we go do that? So we brought a whole bunch of kids to do that. Sadly, that young man passed away at 16. And we have pictures of how proud he was to have his Kingston teammates come to his community and build a playground. And none of us knew within that year that he would lose his life. And in one of our sessions, one of the players who participated wrote about his relationship with that student and how he carried his legacy through his playing and moving forward through his life. So it's amazing, but that's just how it was for the players that I had the opportunity to coach. We were going to be better through all of it. We were going to be in the community. We had honorary captains. One had Down syndrome, one had cancer, and the relationships that our players still have with those individuals is now 10, 12, 15 years later, they're still interacting with them. And the one who was our honorary captain, she was 6 years old and had cancer and was on a softball team that one of the players' moms coached. And she became an honorary captain, and she's now in college and in pre-med.
Amazing.
So that's just how it was with us. And I'll be honest with you, there was a comment at one point, maybe you should worry more about X's and O's and not community service. And I disagreed with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, that's what spurred the question. Because, traditionally when we look at male sports, right. So you make something unique and vulnerable to this experience. So
and to be fair, that comment did not come from us doing the film or not working in the space that we were working in. That was just in general that we were doing too many things outside of the X's and O's. And
Okay.
I said, thank you for the feedback, but we're going to continue to do those things and
That's it.
move forward. And what Eva brought up, and it's absolutely true, is that when they met Tony Porter does his organization works with professional athletes on the same
Right.
level. So every rookie professional athlete in football has to go through a Tony Porter presentation
Oh,
because of the amount of domestic violence
wow.
situations that have ruined careers and ruined families and ruined um, on a level, on a professional level. The organization, the NFL, has worked with Tony Porter and his group to talk about being healthier men in the locker room.
Wow. That's really important information. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
So
Um,
our kids saw that, they were involved in that, and then the event in New Jersey we went to is one of the players who was involved in working with these NFL athletes. And so when you see a man stand up and talk about how he goes into his locker room and talks to his teammates, like Eva said, that's what we were hoping for, is that these boys who do have influence use it in ways that go beyond the gridiron. They go into the classroom and into the community.
Thank you.
Yep.
As you can tell, you got a passionate teacher right there in front of you, right? Yeah, I mean, I've come from 36 years of public school teaching, so I feel you and I hear you. It's incredible. What a gift to be able to have this as a career. I mean, I've always felt that way. So I guess my last question then here for you, Eva, would be, Jamie and I both Jeramie, excuse me, and I both understand the beauty of working with young people, right? And that we're always learning something new,
Mm,
not just about ourselves, right? About we learn about each other and we learn about the world.
yeah.
It's a 24/7 experience. So my question for you is, what have you learned
Mm.
as a result of directing this film? And is there any moment or story that you would like to share with us to close this up, that sort of changed your own perspective about masculinity, about anything during this filmmaking and how it's will impact you moving forward as a director?
Mhm. I mean, I think one of the things that I learned was what I was hoping to learn, and I'm glad that it worked out that way, was that given the space and the education and the encouragement and the support and safety, our young men and our boys want to be able to talk and they want to be able to communicate. And while it may seem like such a huge hurdle to get them to communicate that way, all you really have to do is open the jar and everything comes out. Um, so I just encourage a lot more spaces like that. There's a time in growing up where we can see young boys be very close with one another, have very close relationships, play with each other, and then something happens and it gets turned off and they separate and they isolate and they miss it. They miss connection. They miss being in relationship with one another. And so I really discovered that it's not that far beneath the surface. And I have to say, there's so many things to be discouraged about right now. But when I just met with them again, I felt so encouraged by the way they were able to talk about the work they just went through, the way they were able to appreciate it, the way they were able to still communicate honestly and openly in front of one another, that they hadn't closed down, at least not in the safety of that group that we created together. It makes me feel like there's more promise.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to end. I have to say that the film has done its job.
Oh, thank you so much.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the beauty of this space, is that you are not just creating a film, but you are creating a tool. You're opening a door, you're changing lives, not just for the young men that you worked with, but in their relationships and the effect that how that impacts them, in every step they take moving forward, in their relationships with their families, as young adults, right? As they move out into the world and then eventually, become parents themselves if that's what they decide. And so, how incredible it is to create something that will live on.
Yeah.
Kudos to you, girl.
Thank
Kudos to
you.
you.
Yeah, and just to
Yeah.
acknowledge the co-directors, Beth Davenport, and also played a huge part in creating this film with me, alongside me. And I don't think that there's anything better that can happen than to have a vision for something. And,
Mhm.
I think for filmmakers who might be watching, one of the things that I found rewarding about going to other festivals was hearing other people say, "Oh yeah, it took me 8 years to make this, 11 years to make it, 7 years to make it." Okay, I'm not the only one. It has taken years for us to make this film. And to
Yeah,
see the vision finally come to fruition and to see the impact and the ripple it's having that we hoped it would, I can't think of anything more rewarding than that.
absolutely. Right. So you opened a door, right? This is just not a film that
Hmm.
starts and stops. You opened up a door. And
Thank
so,
you so much.
congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you.
Coach, continue to go out and, work with those kids,
Yeah.
sharing
And
your
I
love.
just like to say I always seem to forget to thank all of the people that it's about, right? So, my wife, my family, my kids, all were a part of this film, and they're in very different stages of the film, and 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 have been to some of the film festivals to see the result. And the first time in Vermont, my wife and I were at the film festival. It was the first time I watched the film on the big screen, and I was crying, and I stood up and I said, "It's okay. It's a big party. You got to be able to shed some tears and be strong enough to say it's all about that emotion, that raw emotion." And but to just have that opportunity to see it with her in that space, and talk about it with the people in that venue was huge. And and Eva to even approach, we didn't know that we knew each other, but it seems like we've known each other forever, and our paths crossed, and we've been close ever since. And she's amazing at what she does. And I said to her the other day, the writing process to me, now that I look back on it, the film's been wonderful. The fact that we were able to capture this through the film is huge. But the process of the writing and allowing these boys to tell their stories is is to me is probably the most memorable and the best part about it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Super excited to bring this to Teaneck High School. We know that it's going to just go over so beautifully, and can't wait to hear the kids respond to it and teachers respond to it. So thank you again so much. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. We're looking
Thank you.
forward to being there.
Best of both to the both of you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Take care.